This is a short video about tracking down and tracing a battery draw on this SL55 or R230 Mercedes. Now, we've already done two videos on the same topic. The first battery drain was the tracker unit, and the second battery drain was a glove box light switch, faulty glove box light switch. Well, using our trusty heat sensitive or thermal imaging camera, I think I have just found out what it is that's draining our battery for the third time, completely different from any of the other two, and I'm just going to very quickly show you. I did mention this before. This is just a thermal imaging camera that I've borrowed, but it's a very, very quick way of finding a battery drain on your car, because if there's any power or energy going through any fuses, this will tend to pick it up pretty quickly, because that fuse will be slightly warmer than other fuses. The advantage of using a thermal imaging camera to find a battery draw is that not all battery draws or drains are actually fused, so you can pull all the fuses out and still have the battery draw. And that's because some circuits, for example the glove box light on this particular car, don't go through a fuse, so you would never have found that particular battery draw using that method. A battery drain on your car, and you want to ascertain whether it's one of the lights not going off, like the glove box light, the central console light, or even the boot light. A very quick way to test that is just to get your iPhone or Samsung, whatever type of phone you've got, set it to record, and then put it inside the glove box and close the glove box, and then look back at the video to see if the light goes out. Staying inside the car now, with all the doors closed, there's no lights on. When we did this before and pointed this at the glove box, you could see a big orange glow. The orange glow there is obviously just my warm feet, and the orange glow there is just that metal reflective buckle. Now just watch what happens when I move this heat sensitive camera across here. Now you see that bright orange spot there? That is just this bit of metal here reflecting, but just watch what happens to that camera as I move over the central console. Can you see that bright orange there? What is it inside this central console that could possibly be causing that heat source? My first thought was the lights that come on when you open these, but that in actual fact is not the problem. On these central consoles they have two catches. They have the top catch and then they have a lower catch. So on the lower catch, when you open it, that's where we store some of our screwdrivers, and on the top catch when you open it is the cradle for the phone, the Nokia phone, which this car used to have. And just watch what happens when I shine this thermal camera at that cradle. In fact, if I touch that cradle, it actually feels warm to me. So I would imagine that that there, for whatever reason, is our drain on our battery. We start looking at fuses, etc. I just want to check that the telephone is actually switched off in the control panel there, and the way to do that is from the main menu where you've got the speed and the temperature displaying. Just hit that button there once and you can see there that the telephone is off, which is as it should be. Interesting thing, it's the next day. I've come down to the garage to take to pieces this SL55, take out the phone modules, see if I can figure out what's wrong with it. But this morning when I point a thermal imaging camera at it, it's not actually showing up as being warm. When I put my hand on it, it's not warm. Now, the interesting thing is, last night as I was trying to diagnose the problem, what I did do was go into the rear fuse box here and try and identify, using a fuse chart here, which fuse the tele module actually related to, and I think it's fuse number 76. And what you can do with one of these here is you can unplug the fuse. So you unplug the fuse and then you plug this in its place where the fuse was, and then you put the fuse in here, and then when you turn this on, it'll show you whether current is flowing through that fuse or not. Now when I did that yesterday, and fuse 76, and for good measure fuse 77, and I'll just very quickly show you where those fuses are. Now the fuses live behind this panel here, and to get this panel out there are two catches that you pull back. Trying to do it with one hand is a nightmare, but eventually you'll be able to lift that panel out. Those are the catches there, and see the several fuses and relays below, and fuse 76 is this red fuse here. It should be a 7.5 amp, so there were potentially 3 modules or 3 fuses that could plug in here. We've only got the lower 2. The top one I'm not sure what it relates to, but we don't have that on our car. So when I pulled that fuse out and put our little fuse testing meter in there, there was no current flowing through that fuse. Now, anybody who's ever taken anything to pieces and put it back together again will know that often just by taking something to pieces and putting it back together again, you'll end up fixing it. And it's quite possible that by taking out the fuse and resetting the module actually cured our battery drain problem. And I suppose the proof will be in the pudding. If I fire this car up, will it actually start without the pesky consumer electrics? So the moment of truth, I'm going to fire this car up. Now, we do have an ABC Visit Workshop light on here because in the interests of science, I broke our ABC system the other day because I'm in the process of doing a video on how to calibrate and set levels without using the expensive Mercedes star system. So we are going to see an ABC light on here, but let's just see what happens. You see the memory malfunction, no malfunction. Incidentally, if you see 2 malfunctions or 1 malfunction on there, if you've just run out of fuel and you get the reserve fuel light on, you'll get memory 1 malfunction. In our particular case, we're going to get, you see the ABC Visit Workshop light there, we would have 1 malfunction, and that would be the ABC light. There you go. There is no pesky low consumer battery warning message. So I was going to do a whole video about how to take the central console out, how to take out the phone cradle or module, replace it if that's what you want to do, or take it out in its entirety. It's not just a simple matter of unplugging the phone, because I do believe that this is wired into the system via fiber optic cables. So maybe we'll do that in another video, but for the time being, I'm happy that we've no longer got the pesky consumer electrics battery warning every time we get in the car. If you do have that problem, just try disconnecting fuse 76. You could also try disconnecting the battery in the boot, although that will lose all your memory settings for seats, etc. And sometimes that'll actually cure the problem. I'm not for a second suggesting that you rush out and buy a thermal imaging camera to track down a battery drain in your car. We were using the FLIR i7 camera. Now, they do occasionally pop up on eBay, but still secondhand, they're still over £500. However, if you took your car to Mercedes or even a good independent garage to try and track down a parasitic drawer, you could spend hundreds of pounds or dollars in labour before they ever find that problem, if indeed they ever do. So it's worth mentioning that if you can pick up a second-hand thermal imaging camera, you can always use the camera to find your fault and then resell it on eBay. You can get one of those blade fuse testers from eBay. They're about £12.50 and they are invaluable for diagnosing battery drains. It is worth reminding you that when you pull a fuse, if that fuse is attached to a module, you're effectively resetting the module. And if you had just been using this method here to try and diagnose that faulty tele cradle module, what you'd find is you pulled the fuse out, put the fuse in here, and that wasn't showing any current draw, so you would move on. And what you wouldn't have realized was that you'd actually reset the module. So if that problem reoccurs in the future, we will know where to look. But if you didn't have that thermal imaging camera to find the problem in the first place, and you were just using that, pulling out fuses, just bear in mind that when you've pulled a fuse, resets the module. But not least, it is a good idea to get yourself a clamp meter if you are planning to try and find or diagnose battery drain faults on your car. I've done a whole video on that subject. That's the one there, the battery drain fix. So I'm not going to go into any of that now, but if you haven't seen that video and you've got a drain on your battery, worth watching that video there.